Good evening, everybody. My name's Auntie Jill, and this is the Meditated 8 Big Book Club. Before we get started, we always read the set-aside prayer. And just for those of you who haven't been with us before, know that the purpose of this prayer is so that you come into the meeting and you set aside everything basically that might prejudice you to having a new experience with a big book study tonight. So essentially, this originates from different sections of the big book, as we've discussed in previous meetings, and you're free to write your own. This one is written by my sponsor, and what we read before we go through the big book line by line. The idea being that we come in here and we're willing to have a new experience with the big book. So before we get going, I'm just going to ask my good old HP, which is what I called my higher power, to bring me to a point where hopefully what we say tonight is going to be exactly what you need to hear tonight. So let's take a moment of silence for the still suffering alcoholic, and then Amy will lead us off with the set-aside prayer.
Thank you. Dear God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, my disease, the big book, and the 12 steps. Everything I think I know about the program, the fellowship, all spiritual terms, and especially about you, God, so I may have an open mind and a new experience with all of these. Please help me see the truth. Amen.
All righty, thanks, Amy. So we're at the bottom of page 81 in your big book. And just to recap, we've been opening up the door to looking at steps 8 and 9. And those are the steps that are concerned with our personal relationships. So what we do is we take a look backward firstly and try to discover our role, where we've been at fault in our relationships. And then we make, as they say, a vigorous attempt to repair the damage that we've done. And then thirdly, we clear away the debris of the past. And while we're doing this, we're acquiring a newfound knowledge of ourselves so that we can take all of these things forward into our relationships with everybody going forward in our life. So it's a look backwards with a view towards cleaning house and having relationships that are healthy and strong going forward. And that has brought us to the bottom of 81. Now, before we go to 81, you see the sentence says at the bottom of the page where we're going to start, it says our design for living. So what I've done there is I've put an asterisk in the margin and I said, see page 28. And I don't like flipping around the book a lot because it can get confusing, but this one is super important. So I want you to turn back to page 28 and look at the second full paragraph. And I'm just going to read this one before we turn it over to everybody reading the paragraph.
You want to pause just for a second, Jill, and I'll find it. I'll do that so everybody can see it.
You can do that. I didn't know you could do that.
Is it changing for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's clever.
Now, where did you want to go?
The paragraph, we in our turn.
Right here?
Yeah. So it says, we in our turn sought the same escape with all the desperation of drowning men. What seemed at first a flimsy reed has proved to be the loving and powerful hand of God. A new life has been given us, or if you prefer, a design for living that really works. So this is our spiritual answer in this program. And this is where we're first really introduced to it. So I really want you to notice that the connection here between there is a solution designed for living and how now on page 81, it's saying, again, referring back to our design for living. So let's start off with somebody reading that paragraph for us on page 81.
I'll be there. Sorry. Hold on.
It's okay.
There we go.
There we go.
Does anybody want to kick us off? I can't see anybody's
I-
face all of a sudden.
I will.
Thank you, Kim. So we're right here.
Eight,
Anybody who's watching.
say our design.
Did you hit
Our
record?
design,
I did.
Okay, super, thank you.
our design for living is not a one-way street. It is as good for the wife as it is for the husband. And actually for the husband. If we can forget, so can she. It is better, however, that one does not needlessly name a person upon whom she can vent jealously. Keep reading.
Yeah, carry on.
Okay.
Perhaps there are some cases where the utmost frankness is demanded. No outsider can appraise which, which an intimate, no outsider can appraise such an intimate situation. It may be that both will decide the way of good sense and loving kindness is to let bygones be bygones. Each might pray about it, having the other one's happiness uppermost in mind. Keep it always in sight that we are dealing with that most terrible human emotion, jealousy. Good generalship may decide that the problem be attacked on the flank rather than a risk-free face-to-face combat. Okay, I'll pass because
So,
I
no,
don't have the right glasses
that's
on.
fine, Tim. That's good. What we're talking about here is we're in the step 8 where we're looking at, and to reiterate, step 8 is to make a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. And so step 8, is, as we said last time, it's the willingness step. And so we're talking about here extramarital affairs and relations between two people. So what it's saying here is that no outsider, nobody outside of the situation can really tell you what to do about an intimate situation. So this is where we do have conversations with our sponsor, but it's like any relationship, only the two people that are directly involved in it know exactly what's going on with each other and what the issue is. So if this is an extramarital affair, and in this case, because of the day it was written, it's assumed that it's the man that's had the extramarital affair, but we know full well today that this goes in both directions. And what it's saying is that, I've underlined here, the way of good sense and loving kindness. Those are really important guidelines in making your amends. We're willing to make amends in step 8, but actually doing them in step 9, we have the qualification, except when to do so would harm others. And so we have to really make some judgment calls here. And notice that it says, and then this is another part to underline in this paragraph, each might pray about it. So this is when you're dealing with extramarital affairs and alcoholism or situations where other parties have been involved, so that jealousy, as it's saying here, is going to be at this most terrible of human emotions. It has to be handled really delicately. And this may be a time for marriage counseling or relationship counseling, or somebody that has a lot of experience in handling these situations. I've even heard recently of Al-Anon advisors becoming involved in these situations as couples are navigating this as you're coming into sobriety. Because jealousy, which is a character defect, is bound to be raised in somebody else that isn't in the program if this is involving a third party in a relationship. Now, if your partner doesn't have a program, they're not getting the same guidance that you are going through doing your amends. So these situations can be handled very badly if they're not considered carefully. So remember, after step 3, we've got another party that's involved in this too, and that's our higher power. So we don't just jump into these situations in amends and say, okay, I'm going to do it regardless of the consequences of everybody else involved just to make myself feel better. That's not the point of it. So this is really a cautionary tale here, saying this is delicate and we're not going to regret the past. We're not going to shut the door on it, but we're going to make really careful, measured consideration on how we're going to address it and how we're going to close this door. And sometimes that means not discussing it in detail or bringing up that third person. So it's going to be different in every situation, but here's where I found walking very carefully with your sponsor or a marriage counselor or a relationship advisor or, a friend that perhaps is in the program that has experience in this situation is very advisable. All right, let's carry on with the reading.
Okay, anybody else want to read? Terry? Oh, Karen, do you want to read, Karen? We are on page 82, if we have no such complication. Or you can look on the screen, whichever works for you. You got it, Karen? Hold on, I can't hear you. I clicked ask to unmute. Oh, there you go, I hear somebody.
Okay, are we ready?
Yep, we're ready for you,
Okay.
Karen.
All right, here we go. If we have no such complication, there is plenty we should do at home. Sometimes we hear an alcoholic say that the only thing he needs to do is to keep sober. Certainly he must keep sober, for there will be no home if he doesn't. But he is yet a long way from making good to his wife or parents whom for years he has so shockingly treated. Passing all understanding is the patient's mothers and wives have had with alcoholics. Had this not been so, many of us would have no homes today, would perhaps be dead. Keep going.
Yeah, the only comment I'm going to make there is, again, it says making good to the wife. This again can be any relationship. Women can have just as much fault in these situations as men can, or you may not even be married. It's just talking about the harmed party in a relationship, whether it's same sex or whatever. We're not making any judgments here, but we need to update the reference here when he says good to the wife. Okay, keep going, Karen.
Okay. The alcoholic is like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken, sweet relationships are dead, affections have been uprooted, selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. We feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. He is like the farmer who came up out of the cyclone cellar to find his home ruined. To his ma, ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing.
Yeah, and this is basically a couple of things here. We're oblivious in this first sentence, like a tornado roaring his way through the lives of others. Until we really are working through steps 8 and 9, we may have become aware of our role in things when we did our inventory in step 4. But there we were largely trying to figure out our resentments and our fears. Here, we're actually starting to take a really good look at what damage we've caused. And Hearts are broken. Sweet relationships are dead. Affections have been uprooted. And then notice it says selfish and inconsiderate. Those are character defects. So I've underlined those, and they kept the home in turmoil. Often the newly recovered alcoholic or in their early sobriety, we're still pretty oblivious to just how much upheaval we've caused in our relationship. And then it says, it uses that word unthinking. We are unthinking because, and I've circled unthinking and drawn an arrow and said, this is a disease of the spirit. Because we are selfish. We aren't considering up until this point truly what our impact has been on other people. We're unthinking of others. And so this whole example of the farmer coming up and saying, oh, ma, is about minimizing the damage or trying to, for our own sake, make it all look like it was a lot less of a problem than it actually was. And what I found in these steps is it's super important to take an honest look at exactly what our role was in these situations and the harm that's done. And it says in when we're doing our amends, one of the things that my sponsor said to me that I've written in the margin here is I need to be right-sized about making amends. In other words, I need to make amends with a key word, humility. So I've written in the margin in here, be right-sized when making amends, come from a place of humility. Okay, we can carry on with the reading.
You want to keep going, Karen?
I'll go a little more and then maybe I'll
Okay.
pass next time.
Okay.
Okay, yes, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. A remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fill the bill at all. We ought to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it, being very careful not to criticize them. Their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own actions are partly responsible. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, and kindliness and love.
Okay, this paragraph is loaded. Okay, so first sentence here, long period of reconstruction ahead. This is really relative to how long you've been drinking and how long your active damage has taken place. So the long period of reconstruction is basically cleaning up all the damage that you've done along the way. And it says here, we have to take the lead. It's not a remorseful mumbling. What is a remorseful mumbling? Remember last week when I was saying an amends is different than an apology? An apology can just be a remorseful mumbling, like, gee, I'm really sorry I did that. Sorry, thanks, bye. A phone call that really, okay, now I've done it. That is not an amends. An amends is going in and saying, this is my side of the street. I'm owning it. I want to clean it up. And how can I make it right for you? And how can I make it right for you is the amends. It's not just saying I'm sorry, it's being willing to repair the damage. What do I need to do to make this okay for you? And then the next part of this is also critical because it says, frankly analyze. See that sentence? We ought to sit down with the family. It's either the family or whatever individual person that you're dealing with. And I've circled frankly analyze the past as we now see it. We're not taking their inventory. And I'm sure you've heard that saying in AA several times when people have said, don't take my inventory. It's really difficult. And that's why it says being very careful not to criticize them. As a sponsor, when you're guiding somebody through these steps, it's super important to keep your sponsee, or for you, if you're the individual that's going through this step, to keep cautioning yourself to not fall into the trap of the blame game. We are often dealing with other people that are equally responsible in a situation for having caused us harm. Or maybe they're still sick and active in their addiction. Or maybe they did something for which we really are struggling with their role in it and want to immediately start picking the scab and poking at them and opening up old wounds. That is not what an amends is about. It's very clear here. We're cleaning up our side of the street. So write that in big letters next to this, because if you go into an amends, reviewing a situation and letting your character defects become their character defects inventory and analysis, all you're doing is reopening an old argument. And again, that is why walk with your sponsor very carefully in going into amends. The ones that you least want to make are likely the ones that you need the most support and guidance with, to avoid the trap of reopening an argument years later. And this also follows with what we say in step 9, where we're going through this process, but not at our benefit at the cost of someone else. It says in 9, except when to do so would injure them or others. So if we go into an amends and we're already fired up about what their role was in it, it's not time to do that amends. There's more work to be done at analyzing and owning our own character defects and getting ourselves into the mindset of truly owning our role and avoiding that trap of falling into taking their inventory. Is everybody clear on the difference between their own inventory and taking yeah. Okay, thanks for the nods. Okay, and then it also says at the end there, asking each morning in meditation that our creator, so that's capitalized creator, so that's your HP, your version of, show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. And I've underlined and highlighted those 4 things. That is the attitude we have to go into an amends with. And to pray to your higher power before doing so, that you be given those, what are those things? Character assets, patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. And that's where we're trying to operate from. That is, as we started this evening's reading, part of our new design for living. That's the Kim 2.0, the Karen 2.0, the Terry 2.0. This is the version of ourself that we want to be when we come out of this process in our sober life. Okay, we can carry on with the reading.
Okay, does Alex want to read by any chance? Oh, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, I can do that. I'm Alex, alcoholic. So the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. Unless one's family expresses a desire to live upon spiritual principles, we think we ought not to urge them. We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual matters. They will change in time. Our behavior will convince them more than our words. We must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness would make a skeptic out of anyone.
Okay, so really important there. And we know, okay, first of all, underline the first sentence, and that is a warning. The spiritual life is not a theory. We can't just pay lip service to this. The design for living idea is that we are going to operate from spiritual principles. It's not just something we talk about. This is now going to be the way we conduct our life. And that's why in italics, it says we have to. That's a mandatory. We have to live it. We have to live on spiritual terms or we drink again. This is a spiritual program. And then it's talking about, we can't go into this and just start telling everybody, okay, everybody, family, partner, we're all going to live on spiritual terms now. I've found God, so you must have found God, and this is the way it's going to be now. It's not a case, if you approach people like that, that they're going to necessarily be receptive. So this is a bit of a caution here. And it says, don't talk nonstop to them about God and your new spiritual life if they're not receptive to it. And that it also says that we've been out for however long we've been out, acting alcoholically and doing the damage we've done over whatever span of time is relative to you. So it's not reasonable to expect with one interaction with somebody making amends and moving and explaining you want to do things differently, that everything is going to turn around immediately and the whole family is going to go, hallelujah, we've all found a spiritual answer. In my experience, and those of talking to many people about this, if you have those sorts of expectations, and we know where expectations take us, which is to drink again, we can't have a preconceived notion or a time frame of how all this is going to take place. It's going to take place in our higher power's time. What we're doing here, though, is making sure that we approach it gently. And as Bill said, you know, in previous places in the book, to go forward to somebody and say, I found God and I'm now living on spiritual you know, in a spiritual way. My life is different and I'm different. So here's my amends, you know, please accept it. It's going to be a hard pill to swallow sometimes. So what this is saying is that in time, people will notice we've changed. It's our design for living. And I've had situations personally where I've made a pretty lame amends initially and gone back and redone it once I really understood what I was doing. Because in essence, what I did the first time round was an apology. So this can be a progressive thing, but you understand the principles behind it, that it's not necessarily waving a wand and everything is immediately better. But our behavior, our conduct, our design for living is what ultimately lets people know we're serious about our new 2.0 version of being. Okay, we can carry on.
You got it, Alex.
Yes, there may be some wrongs we can never fully right. We don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves that we would right them if we could. Some people cannot be seen. We send them an honest letter. And there may be a valid reason for postponement in some cases, but we don't delay if it can be avoided. We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping. As God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anyone.
Okay, this is one of the most important paragraphs in the chapter here. We would, first of all, our attitude in the first sentence is to come in here saying we would write them if we could. That's the part of the amend I was just talking about before, saying we go in with the willingness with whatever the other person says, when you say to them, how am I going to set this right? And if you owe them $1,000 and the only thing it's going to make them feel right is to pay that $1,000, then you have to be willing to do the right thing. So that's important, is to be hearing what the other person says, not to go in with your preconceived notion that just by saying a few words, everything's going to be better. We need to listen and ask the question, how can I make this right? And then I've underlined this is a big promise that's before the step 9 promise. It says we should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble. But here's the kicker. And really notice this, there's a qualification here. Without being servile or scraping. That's a very big qualification on an amends. We don't go back to somebody repeatedly and say, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me. If I've had an amend that has not been accepted, and it was with a family member, and I went back to my sponsor because I kept sending my sister cards and trying to renew a relationship that she did not want to renew. And my sponsor brought me back to this very sentence. And she said, Jill, you've done your amends. You were willing, you went to her and you said, what can I do to make it right? And she rejected the amends and said, no, there's nothing you can do to make this right for me. I'm essentially shunning you and I don't want a relationship with you. So I'm not to be sending these notes endlessly begging for forgiveness. I'm not, and I'm really important to underline this and asterisk this because I've had to refer back to this several times in doing the steps 8 and 9. Not to be servile or scraping. We're living our life now with dignity and respect. We're doing our utmost. We became willing to make this amends. We made the amends. If it's rejected, it says, as God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anyone. So this, you do your best efforts, you make it from the heart, you ask what you can do, and if it's thrown back in your face, I learned to let it go. Because I, at the end of the day, can sleep well because I did my 8 and 9 to the best of my ability. It's not my part to decide how the other party's going to receive it. Is everybody clear on that? Because you don't have to agonize over these. This is to help you heal and help you with your new way forward. But it's not the case that you have to continuously bow and scrape and beg forgiveness. This is not something you need to do over and over again if you've done it to the best of your ability and you've been sincere about it. And that's the beauty of moving on. When you've done the step, even if it's not accepted, you get to move on and draw a line under it. And that's part of what I've talked about before, where you have those heavy shackles that you've been carrying around and they come off because you've done to the best of your ability to make it right. Okay, we can carry on.
Ron, do you want to read? I don't know if Ron was out there. You
Read.
got it, Ron?
Yeah, I got it.
If we are painstaking.
If we are painstaking, I'm Ron. I am an alcoholic. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We're going to know new freedom and new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will truly know how to handle situations we used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
So what is that Ron's just read? Okay, these are the step 9 promises. Now notice, so the whole paragraph is highlighted. And I have a tab in my book that says the step 9 promises, because they are referred to many, many times in big book studies and in our conversations. First note, painstaking. Okay, this is where we don't do anything with half measures. This is where if we go and do our step 8 and 9 to the best of our ability, then the promises happen, but not if we make a half-baked effort at it. And then it says that we're going to know a new freedom, new freedom, a new happiness. This is part of the transformation of moving from your alcoholic 1.0 version of yourself to your sober 2.0 version of yourself. The new happiness and the new freedom is part of the promises. And then it's also this: we will not regret the past or wish to shut the door upon it. You know how you go into AA rooms and you hear people laughing about some of the incredibly insane things they've done, including, relationships that have gone wrong, but if you've made your amends, you've made peace with your past. And that's how we're able to not be a glum lot. And I also look back at the things that I've done that have caused this harm and realize, without going through the process of really taking a good look at it and owning it and doing the best of my ability to repair it, that experience has made me the person I am today. Without all that pain, without all of the tragic situations that occur while we're drinking, we wouldn't be able to pass on to others the keys to this new freedom. And we get to own our past and accept it as that's part of my history. That's where I needed to go to be the person I am today. So we embrace all of ourselves. We embrace our history. And we're able to look back at the things, the trauma in our life, the damage that has been caused by others to ourselves, and the damage we've caused to others in our own actions, and accept it as that's part of what's made me the person I am today. And without that experience, I wouldn't be able to help people like my sponsees in AA today, because I wouldn't have that experience. So instead of looking upon it with regret, I now know how to embrace it. And so on the top of 84, it says, we are going to know serenity and we will know peace. And I can tell you that for me, that is certainly my experience. I've made peace with things that tormented me for decades by going through this process. But it is the process that brought the peace. And it says, no matter how far down the scale we have gone, no matter what you've done, owning it and doing the best to clean it up is healing. It's cathartic. It's what makes you who you are today, and helps you embrace the total person you are, past and present. And then it says, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That's what we get to do when we're doing our step 12 work and we're working with others. We have our own experience, as painful as it is, including going through the amends process, so that we can walk others through the same steps. And that's a very, very big gift. Because no matter what your circumstances are, and they're a little bit different for everybody, but the shame, the humiliation, the self-loathing, it's the same for everybody. The details might be a little bit different, but the process is the same. And then this lovely part, that feeling of usefulness and self-pity. I don't sit and feel sorry for myself anymore, because I've made peace with it, and I'm now moving forward and helping others make peace with their own traumas. And then it says, we lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. That's the aim of the whole program, is to lose interest in ourselves And with the spiritual program, gain an interest in others. And the self-seeking slips away. It doesn't become just the Jill show or the Alex show or the Karen show anymore. It's now about other people. And that's, again, part of the spiritual program. And then this bit about we will know intuitively how to handle situations which used to baffle us. Once we've been through this process a couple of times, it becomes, like we say in meditate when we're at 8, when we're about to come up to 86 here shortly, it becomes a working part of our mind. When we get to exercise this new design for living, it becomes our new state of being and our natural way of dealing with things. And I now today avoid conflict. I don't encourage drama in my life anymore, where I used to thrive on it because I know where it takes me. So this is also the conflict resolution that we're learning in this step helps us to know how to avoid having conflict in the future. We stop it before it even happens. So this paragraph needs to be read over and over and over again. And that is why in so many meetings, they close with the step 9 promises. So if you're not familiar with it, this is a critical page, and I encourage you to put a tab in your book to find it with great regularity, because great peace can come from this. All right, let's carry on.
It's 43. Is that a good
Oh,
spot?
that's a good
stop,
time
or
to
would
stop.
you-
Yeah, that's perfect. This is an ideal place to stop.
Because this thought brings us to step 10 is where we are, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Good call, Amy.